Good afternoon. Welcome to today's program from the Newark Public Library, NPL at Home, African American Newspapers. I'm Tom Ankner, the director of the Charles F. Cummings, New Jersey Information Center. Before we get started, I just wanted to encourage you all to fill out your census forms. Filling out the census is one small but very important thing everyone can do right now to help our city and our communities. If you haven't done so yet, excuse me, please go to my2020census.gov and fill out the brief questionnaire. The information you provide affects funding for healthcare, transportation, your local schools, and many other needs. Remember, my2020census.gov. It is safe, secure, and confidential. Today's program is another of our NPL at Home sessions, designed to introduce people to exciting and interesting items from the special collections of the Newark Public Library. Today, we will be exploring some of the African American newspapers that have been digitized and made available free online at digital.npl.org. One of the newspapers I will be showing you today is the City News. The City News was a newspaper based in Newark, began publishing in 1983, focused on the African American experience. Digitized issues span the years from 1990 to 2002. The other paper had several titles over many years: the Herald News, the Newark Herald, the Advance. It was published in Newark from the 1930s to the 1960s, but only a few issues were preserved. I will be showing you some of those issues today. So now I will show you how to get to the digital archive. So first I want to share my screen. And okay. So you should all be seeing the, you should all be seeing the main screen of the digital archive, which is digital.npl.org. NPL is in Newark Public Library. And this is the Newark Public Library Digital Repository, or Digital Archive as we usually refer to it. This is where we keep all of our digital items that all the items that we have digitized for the library. And we are in the process of moving from one platform to another. So you will find some inconsistencies, things that don't really work the way they should sometimes when you go to this site. After the next few months, we hope when we complete the transition, we hope that that will end and that everything will be complete. Anyway, so now we're at the main screen of the digital repository, digital.npl.org. To find the African American newspapers, you can either do a search in the search box, which is over here, or you can just click on newspapers, which is over here. Okay, and so that's what I did. Now there are two of these categories here I'm going to be showing you. There is the category African American Newark newspapers, which is actually one newspaper that changed title over time. I'm going to show you that, and the other newspaper I'm going to be showing you is the City News, which is the fourth category down here. Some of these are there are some other categories. There are Newark area community newsletters and newspapers, the La Tribuna newspaper collection, which was a Spanish language paper, and information. This was a paper that was published in Spanish and English and published by the city of Newark back in the 1970s. So anyway, let's begin with, but the two categories I want to show you are African American Newark newspapers and City News. Let's begin with the City News. Okay, so when you click on City News, this is what comes up. Each of these boxes here with the link next to it is a different issue of the paper. Now, as I said, this paper began publishing in 1983. The digitized copies begin in 1990. And we have several pages of them here. It looks like more than 9 pages worth of papers. It was a weekly paper. I'm just going to click on a few of these to show them to you. Let's click on City News here, and you come up with an issue here. Okay, so this is the, if you want to, it's hard to read when it's this small on the screen. So if you want to make it larger, you hit the, click on this full screen symbol here. You can make it larger, and if it still isn't large enough, and for me with my middle-aged eyes, it still isn't large enough, so I go up to the hourglass, or not the hourglass, the magnifying glass with the plus in the center of it, and click on that a few times. It makes the paper, well, maybe not quite that big, but it makes the paper a little bigger. Okay, so this is an issue from 1997, so these are not in order. The issue from June of 1997. This paper was, its slogan was "Serving New Jersey's African American Communities Since 1983." It had a statewide focus, but it was published in Newark. So I just want to see, there's a story about Manville here. There's a story about Governor Whitman. Christy Whitman was governor at the time in 1997. This is a Newark story down here. African American Heritage Day Parade that was a Newark parade, is a Newark parade. And then there's other stories here. If you want to page through this issue, just click on these arrows at the bottom. Okay, so that was page 1. We're now on page 2 and page 3. You can move it over to the right to see page 2 and move it to the left to see page 3. Take you to page 4 and page 5. This is Tisha Campbell, proud daughter of Newark, went to Arts High School. Okay. This is a review of Con Air. I was looking through this morning. I didn't realize Dave Chappelle was in Con Air. There's a picture of him there. I didn't realize that he did some serious acting before he had his show and did his stand-up. So you can just, anyway, you can just page through this issue. Here's an article about Shaquille O'Neal, another proud child of Newark. And you can also, anyway, just showing you how you would, this was an advertising supplement, obviously. Okay, so now if you want to go back to the other issues, you just get out of full screen by clicking on that and go back, click on City News again, and that'll bring you back to the list of issues. We'll click on another issue here, get a look at it. Okay, again, it's small. You want to make it larger, do full screen. And if it still isn't large enough, use the plus sign in the magnifying glass. And here, this is an issue from 2001. Here's a review of a movie, the Angela Bassett, the Rosa Parks story. This is a story from Trenton. This is about a story about lead-poisoned children. That's probably Newark. There are also some other stories here. This is about the Abbott schools, of course. There's another story here. Again, you can page through the issue, going from left-hand side to right-hand side. Okay. I just wanted to show you a few of these issues. And if we get out of this, you can search inside this book. I've found that sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. I found it didn't really work that well with the City News, but with some of the other newspapers I'm going to show you today, it worked better. Let me see.
I think that's still part of the website transfer and it should be improved.
Okay.
As well.
Oh, so that's, yeah, I figured that was it. I just, yeah, Beth is going to know better than I will about why it worked. It worked better with the other paper that I was doing. It didn't really work that well with the City News. Anyway, so we've done that. We've looked at the City News and there are several pages worth of issues here. And also, if you want to, when you have an issue up on the screen and you don't go to the full screen, there is a, if you want to know more about the issue, it will tell you a little bit more here. This is called metadata here. It gives you a little bit more information. It gives you the date, where the physical item is located in the Charles F. Cummings, New Jersey Information Center. And it gives you some other information here as well. Anyway, so we've looked at the City News. So let's go back to the main page. Click on newspapers again. Now we'll look at this category, African American Newark newspapers. All right. So this paper was published in Newark from the 1930s to the 1960s. It started out as, I think, the Herald News or the Herald. It became the Herald News. Then it merged with the Advance in the 60s and became the Herald Advance. Only a handful of issues of this paper have been digitized. We basically digitized 2 reels of microfilm to produce these digital images here. And so there were a handful of issues from the years 1938 to 1946. And then there were another handful of issues from the mid 60s, from 1965 and 66. And I believe, Beth, tell me if I'm wrong, I believe we also had some loose paper issues donated that we also digitized. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and the Barbara Kukla collection,
yeah,
I think, and
that's,
some other
that's
ones.
what I thought. Yeah, okay. So let's just click on a couple of these. These are the advanced. This would be from the 60s. And you can just, again, large screen. This is interesting. This was from May of 1966, right before the mayoral election in Newark. A lot of people don't realize that Ken Gibson, who was elected in 1970, actually ran for mayor 4 years earlier. He ran for mayor in 66 and lost to the incumbent at the time, Hugh Adenizio, then when he ran, but did better than expected. And then when he ran 4 years later, he won. So this is the election coverage of that year from 1966. Gibson polls 16,117 votes. He lost the election, but he did better than expected. So that was big news when he got that many votes. What I like when I look through these issues from the 60s is that there are all these names that come up that were still around like decades later. Donald Payne, who was later a city councilman, and then he was a congressman. He died around 2012, I believe, and his son now occupies his seat in the House of Representatives. Earl Harris was later a congressman. And still other, and still there was another issue I was looking through that I saw, names I recognized. Anyway, so this is it's kind of interesting. This is from microfilm. So the images don't always come out so clearly when you digitize from microfilm rather than from hard copy papers. That's why the images you can't really tell that well what's going on. It's a picture of young Ken Gibson. And these issues you actually can search for, because I found, here's Calvin West, who was elected, became the second African-American person elected to the Newark City Council in 1966. And this was right after he was elected. If you search inside the book here, I think it actually works better. It did I did the last time. Maybe not in this issue. Maybe it was one of the other issues I was looking at. Yeah, it didn't really work in this. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so let's go back to the main screen here. So that was one issue. Click on the Herald Advance. That was also in the 60s, I believe. Yeah, this was June of 66. So I guess it was right after that advance paper, that the Herald Advance was published, or was merged. I'm going to go back to the list of. There was one that I liked. I wanted to show you what it looks like when there's actually a paper copy, because I did find a paper copy in one of these. I forget where it was. Anyway, I can't find it now, but anyway, this is the New Jersey Herald News. This might be from an earlier period. Let's see what the date is on this. Yeah, this is from 1943. So this was, good more than 20 years earlier. This is from the earlier version of this paper. And let's see, I wanted to, just get out of this. Make this bigger first. Bring it up here. So we have, this paper, this was not as much political coverage in this issue. Is more, looks like more crime. But this is 500, I guess that's about African Americans serving in the Army. This was during World War II, 1943. This also had a statewide focus, but was published in Newark. Judkins elected coroner. That's Plainfield, so that would have been Union County. Of course, the paper taking great pride in any African Americans elected to positions in the 1940s. That would have been pretty unusual, I would think, in Newark, in New Jersey, and anywhere really in the country here. We saw there was a social page, and weddings and engagements. Maybe I don't know whether they've. Let's see what this was. It's not. Oh, there it is. Okay, trying to figure out how to make it bigger. Just. What is this? Social brief. Sergeant James Ramsey, one of Newark's most popular young men, spent a 12-day furlough in the city visiting his sister and brothers, Mrs. Johnny Ross and Mr. So they were really local, kind of local things. Probably these were submitted by family members of these people, like any, just like you would see the similar kinds of things in the Newark News or the Star Ledger of the day. I'm just gonna, just paging through this, and you see we have in the ads. And it's just as, you would, if you were looking through the Newark News of 1943, you would probably see no black faces or very few black faces. And so this was, having a paper like this was meant to make up for that with African Americans who were, of course, would be more interested. Many African Americans would be more interested in reading about news of other African Americans. This was meant to an outlet for people to see news of their own community. There is one other newspaper I wanted to talk about that has not been digitized, and I want to just stop my share. Yes, so I just wanted to talk about another newspaper that we have on microfilm. The New Jersey AfroAmerican was published from 1941 to 1988. And we have pretty much a full run on microfilm here at the library. We have not digitized that, in part because although the paper is not being published anymore, the company that published it is still in business and is still publishing other newspapers. And so there were copyright issues with that. It's also a much longer run, and we have pretty much a complete run. It was a weekly paper, and we have pretty much every issue, I believe every issue from 1941 to 1988. So it's a fairly large collection, and it is available here at the library. Once we reopen, you can certainly come in and look at the microfilm. If you need a specific story from that paper, we can create a copy for you and email it to you. There is no index to it, and there is no database to search it, so you would kind of have to know a date or a rough date to find something in that paper. And that was the other newspaper I wanted to talk about. So so I see Beth is explaining why maybe the screen looks a little funny to people. I'm using the screen that goes along with one of our Scan Pro computers, which is we turn the screen on its side because it's easier to read newspaper pages that way. And so that's why the screen might look a little different than it usually does if you've been attending these sessions. Okay, so I just wanted to know, does anybody have any questions? So Kate is asking if did other cities have black newspapers? Yeah, I believe there were other cities in New Jersey that had black newspapers. I'm not really familiar with what those papers are, but it's very possible that Atlantic City had a black newspaper. I would think Asbury Park might have, maybe Plainfield too, but I'm not really sure, but I'm sure they didn't. I think Trenton had a black newspaper as well. But we'd have to do some research to find out, where they were. I'm really only familiar with these papers from Newark. But other papers, yes, other cities did have black newspapers. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank you for joining me today for a tour of online African-American Newark newspapers. Please join me Wednesday for a talk with Libby Copeland, the author of a new book, The Lost Family, How DNA Testing is Upending Who We Are. That is Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. on Zoom. For other Newark Public Library programs, visit the library's calendar at npl.org/calendar. Good afternoon, everyone. Be safe.